Welcome to Don't Mind Me, I Just Have ADHD, the podcast where fierce kindness meets the unfiltered truth. A one-stop shop about all things ADHD, where we smash the stigma and mystery around ADHD, depression, and the masks we wear at work and in life. I'm Ron, your ADHD guy, your guide, and your reminder that being different isn't a flaw. It's a biological advantage, a signal that you were never meant to blend in. You were built to make a difference. Here, we face the struggles that no one seems to get with heart. We unpack the chaos. We build strength through our sensitivity. We turn pain into power. Because kindness isn't weak. It's a revolution. And every time you show up for yourself, that's you taking your life back. So let's make it cool to be different. Let's make it brave. Let's make it yours.
All these messages that people with ADHD hear is like, there's something wrong with you. There's something wrong with you. Why are you doing that? Stop it. Right. Instead of like, hey, this is something that you struggle with. Let's figure out how to work with it.
Hey, my beautifully different brains. Welcome back. It's Ron Sowers, your ADHD guy. Last week, we stepped into part one of an eye-opening conversation with Kayla Crane, therapist and fellow ADHDer, about what it really means to live and work with ADHD. We got real about masking, time blindness, and how hard it can be just to be understood. Today, in part two, we're diving even deeper. It's emotional dysregulation, workplace compassion, parenting with ADHD, and how shame sneaks in when we don't know how to talk about our needs. This one hits home. And please, if you can stay tuned to the end, I have something special just for you. Let's get into it. On the flip side of that, as a manager, is there any things that you might suggest that they could look out for in those situations?
Yeah. I mean, I think like being compassionate, is a huge piece of it. Being
Yeah.
understanding within reason. We can't expect, everything to change because we we have ADHD, right? But
Yeah.
but reasonable accommodations if it's possible. I think that's always uh a compassionate way to handle things, right? If somebody is a little slower, maybe the boss can be intentional about giving them their work or the assignment maybe a few days before they would typically give it to them, because they know it takes them a little bit longer, right? Maybe allowing them like a grace period of 5 minutes to get to work.
Yeah.
Um, like I said, something reasonable. Maybe they, allow them to take take walks, right? Like sometimes going to take a walk can be helpful.
Yeah.
Uh, just kind of, I think that even like during meetings and stuff, um, I can focus so much better when I'm like doodling or doing something.
Hmm.
I try, it can be, sometimes people think it means I'm not paying attention, right? But it's actually the opposite. That's how I can focus best. And so I think
Yeah.
having that understanding, and maybe if you're in a meeting with them, like, understanding that they're paying attention and listening in maybe a different way, but that they're still doing that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think those are a couple things. Like I said, a lot of ADHD is like tricks, like doing things a little bit differently to meet your needs. So I think as much as a boss is willing to be on board with that, um, within reason, I think that that's so great. And
Yeah.
it really like validates the employee and makes, I think a lot of the time makes them, it really does normalize it. Like, hey, this is something I'm dealing with. Just like for an extreme example, somebody who is in a wheelchair, they take a ramp, right? Like
Yeah.
that's an accommodation that they make because it just that's what they need.
Yeah.
Um, so I think just paying attention to that and even at school, like my daughter's teacher is fantastic. She lets them chew gum, right? And because
Mm.
sometimes it's easier to my daughter chews on her hair, and so instead she chews on gum. Teacher's totally open to her, walking around, taking a lap if she needs to. And I think a lot of people, teachers, or even bosses, I think are worried that that will get like taken advantage of and stuff. And
Yeah.
in the reality, like we want to get our work done too, like we don't want to spend all day on something that could take an hour, 2 hours. But that really helps get our brains working in whatever way. Um, just
Yeah.
kind of finding a way that works.
No, that's awesome. Is there any like questions that they could ask that could open the door for that, like in a way that seems more safe and welcoming?
Yeah, I mean, I think um hopefully the boss is a compassionate person, right? But being like open with, hey, this is something that I do struggle with, right? For instance, I when I work with clients, I lose my train of thought sometimes. Um,
Hmm.
and since my job is to talk, sometimes it will be kind of awkward. I mean, like mid-sentence, I'll just completely forget what I'm talking about. But
Yeah.
like I said, I'm pretty open and say, hey, like most of my clients, I think all of my clients know that I have ADHD, and sometimes that happens and I get back on track, within less than a minute, but
Yeah.
sometimes it just happens. And I think had I not told them the reason, right, it would be like, what's going on here? Why is she doing that?
Yeah.
But since I tell them, so I think hopefully the boss is open enough to like be okay and want to work with them. So it's, hey, you don't have to use the language ADHD if you don't want to, but hey, sometimes I really struggle with paying attention or staying on task. I'll still get it done, but it helps me to go take a walk. Would that be all right with you? Or can we collaborate on a way that I would be able to do something like that?
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. So with emotional dysregulation and the feelings, they don't normally get talked about. Well, they just don't get talked about enough. It's like a whole mask of like these intense, incredible emotions that most people don't like understand that they could switch. Like for me, like I could be in the best mood and then all of a sudden I'm just somebody says something a certain way or something happens and I'm flipped. Like I'm a totally in a totally different headspace. Um, you deal with depression. What's that? What are those things? What is that like? What do you wish more people understood about that?
About the emotional dysregulation
Yeah.
or the depression.
And leading into the depression.
Yeah, I wish they understood that again, that's a symptom. So my daughter is 8 and she just got a diagnosis, I think, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Um, but she there our first sign wasn't the focus, it was the emotion dysregulation. And I mean, it was drastic. Like you said, we wouldn't know when it was going to happen. And then it was,
Yeah.
I mean, really, it would get really out of control. And so I think just like normalizing that that's something that happens. And again, it sometimes it's like a us thing, right?
Yeah.
So instead of our partners saying like, wait, what did I do? I can't figure this out, right? Like having that awareness that this could just be some emotional dysregulation. It could just be overwhelming. It can be too much sensory input, right?
Hmm.
Although I am a very messy person, I have a very hard time like being tidy.
Hmm.
Um, at the same time, clutter gives me anxiety. And so it's kind of like a double-edged sword, right?
Yeah.
But that anxiety a lot of times can look like irritability. So I think that's helpful for me to be aware of that, like, wait a second, everyone's not doing things that are wrong right now. I'm just being irritable.
Yeah.
And so like, taking that in, taking your ownership of that. But yeah, I think just that this is what happens sometimes and how can we work with it again, right? Like now my daughter can um scream into a pillow or throw stuffies against the room or rip
Mm.
up paper, right? Like giving her outlets for that dysregulation rather than stop doing that, right? Because again, all these messages that people with ADHD hear is like, there's something wrong with you. There's something wrong with you. Why are you doing that? Stop it, right? Instead of
Yeah.
like, hey, this is something that you struggle with. Let's figure out how to work with it. But I think that again, that can be really shaming. And I think um anyone who responds impulsively to an emotional like into emotional dysregulation, that can bring on a lot of shame, right? And if that continues happening and they continue getting the message, like, stop doing that, there's something wrong with you, that can
Yeah.
definitely result in depression and that low self-esteem, low motivation. Um, just like I said, kind of like living in the shame that that constantly being getting the message that something wrong with me. It's not at all
Yeah.
uncommon for that to result in depression and really those negative beliefs about yourself like being forefront in your mind. And I think a lot of times that's what depression is, just living with that negative belief right here
Yeah.
versus it's kind of hopefully buried a little bit but then gets stirred up. I think with depression it doesn't really, it's always there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because it's like we're living in a world, especially in the workplace where, and even at schools where it's like if you show emotions, there's something wrong. Like this needs to be a place devoid of emotions and like, maybe you can be happy, maybe you can be a little frustrated, but if you show any extreme levels, like there's something wrong with you. And since I'm, people with ADHD tend to feel strong emotions a lot, you know, um, and you can't help it. And it's like the thing is like I'm feeling these emotions. So there there something like how can that be wrong that I'm feeling them? They need to be expressed in a certain way, and it's great that you were talking about that. There needs to be an outlet, and sometimes, if I'm really frustrated and I feel like something needs it, like I'll go out to my car and scream in my car, and like so no no one hears it, because I know it needs to come out, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's just there's something going on and that I don't like that I need to explore. And the more that I'm able to do that, and that could have came from my childhood, like that scream's been built up for 30 years or longer and it's just being stored inside my body, and that creates like stress, anxiety, and eventually depression because like I don't know where to get this out because I this isn't I feel like I'm crazy because I'm feeling normal emotions.
Yeah, it can be really overwhelming. And like you said, a lot there is that message that like no emotions, and particularly men are socialized that vulnerability is not okay. And
Hmm.
so anger, frustration is a form of anger, that's almost always covering up a more vulnerable emotion. But boys are taught that the only like negative emotion that's acceptable is anger. And so if I
Yeah.
got really angry, like what was I forget the example that I used earlier, but my husband like canceled a dinner without telling me, or that we had planned or something, I might get really angry and kind of like blow up or something, or need to go scream, like scribble on paper. But
Yeah.
I like got more specific. Like maybe I was really just feeling disappointed. Um, when I'm able to identify that all this like anger is disappointment, number one, for me, it feels a lot better because anger just feels like big, right?
Yeah.
Like it's just anger. We can't really pinpoint it. It's just what it is.
Hmm.
But when we can get more specific and say, oh, actually, I'm probably just feeling rejected right now, or I'm feeling disappointed, or I'm feeling lonely, that changes things because now I have like specific language to identify what's going on with me. It makes more sense to me. I can now communicate that to whoever made me feel like that, right? It looks very different when I'm saying I'm so mad at you versus I'm really disappointed.
Yeah.
Mad, the anger is going to push somebody away, and then but
Hmm.
that vulnerability will bring them closer. So I think that that's like so important, is to be able to get under that anger, and that can be so like just to have that language again, like, oh, this is what it is. This is why it hurts so much. Then you can communicate that and solve a problem, right?
Yeah.
Like, but with the anger, it's just like go away, right?
Yeah. There's literally, and there's a time and a place for anger, you
Oh,
know,
yeah.
and and it's not in some volatile blow things up. It's like, people like Martin Luther King got angry about a situation and did something, proactive about it. There's a healthy place for it. But when we can't differentiate the different types of emotions, like understanding and when we're taught to not feel emotions, there's this whole language of who we are that's foreign. And we can't, we're taught not to communicate that. And when you don't know what's going on inside you, you can't solve the problem that's really there. And there's a lot of mystery in who you are. And like it creates this mess of like what I honestly think is we see in a lot of society. It's not being able to communicate, not being able to ask the right questions. And that's huge.
Yeah. And, there's definitely, I agree, there's, a place for anger, and there's still probably more under it, right? So
Yeah.
like Martin Luther King, totally valid that he was angry. His anger made a huge difference in our world, right? But in addition to that, he was probably feeling some kind of like well, I don't know, but it could have been, maybe some kind of fear for the
Oh
future,
yeah.
or, maybe again, rejection. It can be so many things. Um, but being able to communicate that, even along with the anger, can be so beneficial because if we're just mad, um, like I said, it pushes people away, but also they don't know what the problem is, right?
Yeah.
If I um if I go back to the example where my husband cancels a date, if I just am angry, he might think I'm mad because he didn't tell me he was going to cancel the date, right? But
Yeah.
maybe I'm really feeling hurt that he we didn't have a date at all or something totally different, right? And
Yeah.
so he's working off of that. That's not going to work in the future. But if I can identify, oh, I was really upset because you didn't tell me you were going to do this, then he knows, well, in the future, that's something that's important to her.
Yeah, that whole back to that whole communication.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, and so what's something as a therapist and somebody that lives with ADHD, um, what would be the thing that you wish more people understood about it?
Um, that like there's not something wrong with us, right?
Yeah,
It's something we're just a little different, like neurodivergence, right? Divergence is just different. We think differently.
yeah,
And that's it's not a bad thing, right? We're not it's just we live a little bit differently, just like somebody with anxiety, right? They're going to live a
yeah,
little bit differently, just like anybody else. And um, it's it's our own thing. So I think that's helpful for us as people with ADHD to be able to identify like how am I again like what's really going on here? Is this my own stuff from my past or not? But then also just like I, keep saying, just compassion.
yeah,
Um, we're not being disrespectful. We're not trying to be mean or rude by maybe not, not like I said, doodling while somebody's in a, talking or being 2 minutes late or like kind of zoning out for a minute. That's not we're not trying to be mean or disrespectful. This is just something we struggle with and we're
yeah.
doing our best. And that's doesn't mean anything as about us as who we are as people. It's just something that is a challenge for us.
Yeah, and we actually feel, bad that we're doing it. It's that, like we don't mean to do these things, and and it's okay to be
Yeah,
different. It's
yeah,
it's actually a really good thing because like we can when we think differently and we're designed to do that, like we can actually solve problems in a
yeah,
better way, coming together and being able to like that diversity is such a strength.
yeah, yeah,
So you were talking about earlier about like, and I noticed you got like two watches on, and you were being late and like the time blindness thing. What are some things that have helped you, or can help somebody that has that same struggle?
yeah. One of these watches was my grandpa's. It actually does work, which that could be my excuse for being late. But I'm just but like
Oh,
I said, I think I keep timers in like every room in my house, in my office. And these, for me, that work like a visual timer, right?
yeah,
I can put it on my phone, but I don't see it. But like something like this has like you can see that, right? So for me, timers work very well. Um, Notes. If you could see my desk right now, I think I have 12 post-its right in front of
yeah,
me.
yeah,
Notes to remind me to do everything. I think, what else do I do? I journal a lot when I feel emotionally dysregulated. That's really helpful for me to
yeah.
kind of see things from an outside perspective sometimes.
Okay.
Um, uh, Fidgets. I mean, I have fidgets all over. So I think, yeah, just trying things out and not feeling like there's something wrong if you need to have post-its all over your house, right? Like, or if you,
Yeah.
that's who you are and that's how your life works best. And that's just how it is, but not feeling like there's something wrong with you for doing that.
Yeah, no, definitely. I need a visual like clock. Like, especially I've explained this to my manager, like if there's not some clock there, like, and I have to look at my phone, I'm not like when I open the phone, there's so many other things that are there that I forgot that I was actually looking for the time.
Yeah.
And thankfully she understood that. But there was a lot of other things in that conversation that I was trying to explain um that still need to be would be better if it was understood. So, unfortunately, that's we're at the top of the hour, and it's been such a lovely conversation and I've learned a lot. Um, where can my um my audience find you if they really want to reach out? And
Yeah. My website is southdenvertherapy.com, and also on Facebook and Instagram, just South Denver Therapy. And
okay.
all my information's on there, email, all that stuff.
Okay, that sounds awesome. Do you have like any like parting wisdom?
Yeah, I remember when I was diagnosed, my grandma said, like, okay, but like you're still you, right?
Yeah,
Like that doesn't mean there's something wrong with you, and it's okay. Like you don't have to change not being able to focus all the time, right? Like
yeah,
I need to make my life manageable and be able to do things, but also like sometimes I don't need to change it, like
yeah,
sometimes my symptoms are okay. It's not something I always have to resist, like that hyperfixation, right? Like,
yeah.
okay, there's something I like and it's not interrupting anything else. I don't need to try to be different. I can kind of just embrace this part of me.
Well, awesome. Well, I thank you again. We're honored and flattered that you get on the show. You have a great
Yeah,
day.
thanks. You too. Bye.
Wow. Thank you again, Kayla, for your incredible insight, strength, and energy. If this hits home, here's your next steps. Join me live on July 18th at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, 7 a.m. Pacific Time for my free webinar, Unlocking Your Potential Through Mindfulness. It's not about selling, it's about growing a community that gets it. We'll explore practical ways of using character strengths and mindfulness to thrive in work, relationships, and life. Reserve your free spot now at youradhdguy.com. That's youradhdguy.com. You don't want to miss this. And if this episode helped you feel a little less alone, share it with someone who needs to hear it. I see you. You're not broken. You're wired for something different. And that's so powerful. You take care, and may the source be with you.